I'm the Geeky Amreeki.
And I'm Jake Kulkowski.
And you're watching Distant Socializing. Alright, so everybody knows who I am. So why don't you tell them who you are?
Jake Kulkowski, man of the world, father of two, husband of one. I have a podcast with my two friends. I work in the video game industry as a PR consultant, and I'm just a generally nice guy. Very humble. A lot of people kind of know me on the internet for either, the podcast that I run with my two friends called Special Moves. If you're also a content creator, then you might know me as the PR guy that sometimes sends you games.
Me. I'm not cool enough.
It's tough out there, bro.
Dude, how could you guys not want to send games to somebody who gets an average of 10 to 20 views a video?
You and 500 other people per game have the same question.
I get it, but I do have to say that I think my reviews especially are pretty good.
Well, I've got to tell you that I actually struggle with sort of Netflix and things where these days it's like a quantitative problem where there's too many things. So like when you were doing a series of like what to watch on Netflix coming up, it like that's such a useful tool that I ended up watching things I never would have watched. The anime documentary off the back of that, never would have watched that. I think you gave Haunting of Hill House a shout. I watched that and I ended up liking that more than anything else on Netflix I've ever seen. So I wouldn't have seen that if it wasn't for your videos. So I've got to say, I've got to give a real push for that curatorial stuff, man. I really got to say.
I've been told I have pretty good taste, so I tend to make the list of movies and shows and things like that, and people seem to dig it. My tastes do get a bit dark.
No matter what your taste is, when people have a similar taste, they know that they can kind of trust you. Like, I think that's the thing when we've got a podcast of three people, and I think the beauty there is that we don't always agree on what games are good. So, but if it was three of me on a podcast, God, it would drive people crazy. So it's good that
podcast.
Yeah, exactly. The Walking Simulator podcast. I guess everybody who listens to our podcast will have one person of the three of us that they relate to the most, and it's great to have the opinions of that person constantly. So yeah.
Shout out to Liam and Mike, but I love all three of you guys. I've liked you guys for a long time. When you were with another channel, and then you were newer, and I remember this was after a bit you came on. I was like, looks cool. He's got like the piercings in the hair, and he always wears cool band shirts and stuff. I'm like, but what does he know about gaming? And then over time, I was like, well, this dude's dope. And you ended up being like my favorite one.
That's really cool to hear. I feel like, I'm pretty good gaming. I think I was a bit of a polarizing guy. I'm just very, very opinionated. A lot of people don't like that, especially when it was mixed with the kind of videos that were getting put out, which were very like topics that people felt very passionate about. So like, because somebody's already going into a video that they were very, very passionate about, if you weren't kind of in line with their opinion, then it's going to be very inflammatory. And that's sort of something that I don't miss, really.
When you switched over to doing your own thing, which I actually enjoy more, because the stuff that I always liked was when you guys just talked about things, and it wasn't like, hey, what's everybody else talking about in the news? Let's talk about that. Now it's what you guys do now is just, we think this is cool, so we're going to tell you about it.
I'll be brutally honest. Like, we were a pretty good game, and me, Mike, and Liam as employees, we lived and died on our income, which was being paid by YouTube. So I guess there was some sort of strategic element there to like YouTube placement and things like that. Whereas to be completely honest now, like we've all got other things on, stable jobs or what. So we don't rely on that. And I think that suits us a lot more. We're totally in control of it. And I often see comments on our comment section talking about how they love the atmosphere of our channel. And they say that they feel bad sometimes that we haven't grown so fast. And I can honestly say, I really don't mind. Our YouTube numbers are the lowest out of our other numbers. Do you know it's just a nice ritual to speak to my friends once a week and have a nerdy, stupid, what would probably be considered insignificant to a lot of people, be listened to by like thousands of people around the world, and to have such a nice clean comment section that's just constantly full of praise, or even when people don't agree, it's like
they're not trolling.
10,000 comments where you were being called all sorts of names to 150 comments. It's gone from quantity to quality kind of thing. So I would always choose that.
Yeah, I agree too, because before, and I think that's one of the issues of my channel is there's so much stuff coming out that people people have a hard time keeping up. So I wouldn't watch all of them. I'd have to like, well, I have time for this one or this one. Where now you guys put out one or two, depending on what it
Yeah.
is. And then usually what I'll do, and I think you're the same way, late at night, everybody's gone to bed. I'm finished up my stuff. I'm going to have like a snack. I'm just chilling before I go to sleep, and I'm in my own little world. That's usually when I watch.
Totally. I think that that's the kind of thing. And I guess our long form style content suits that a little bit more than like kind of a bullet point newsy style. So I guess, it's, I always kind of make a joke of it in a podcast that people listen to us in the bath or in the car and stuff like that. But that's the thing, like the majority of our listeners, about a 70-30 split, just listen. They don't even watch. So when we started, we actually were just putting out the audio, and it was like and we were supplementing that with video content. And there was a lot of people that wanted to see our faces. We did it, and now we've got a comfortable scenario where we've got a sofa, and we've got the classic the salt lamp. People really like it, so it's worth the effort of driving all that way. It takes us about an hour to get there and an hour to get back from Mike's house, which is where we record the podcasts. Wales is a super small country in comparison to like 90% of other countries. So we drive from like the very northeast to the very northwest of the country. And that's only like a 50-minute drive, like, because you go across like a small motorway. It's good because like it's my one-on-one time with Liam. It's like checking in on your little brother. And then we meet up and get some food. So it's a cool atmosphere. Yeah.
I've seen it on the map and everything, but I always picture Wales as huge because the only thing I ever see of it are these huge like vistas and open areas. Even when you guys did your like check out our new channel, you were like up on the mountain.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely tiny. It's just not very densely populated. So 3 million people live in Wales, and there's like 12 or 14 million people that live in London, the city. Wales is an absolutely beautiful place.
Yeah, it always reminded me of like Lord of the Rings, New Zealand stuff.
The one thing about Wales that I've got to say, it's that the language is everywhere in fantasy. Bran from Game of Thrones, Welsh name. The Wild Hunt, it comes from like the oldest Welsh folklore, which even predates the Slavic mythology. The Celtic roots run deep. I'm playing Mount and Blade 2 at the moment, and like there's loads of Welsh words in there. So the language just seems to evoke some sort of like fantastical poetry. It inspires people if they're into all that sort of Dungeons and Dragons style stuff, and that's interesting for such a small country to have such a big impact on a loved genre like that. Yeah.
So do you read fantasy stuff?
When I was younger, I used to read a lot more than I do now. I'm reading some manga at the moment. I've just been reading like the old classics like
Berserker, right?
Berserk, right? Anime and manga is like, it's a whole world, right? You know what I mean? Like you could be like the biggest anime fan and you could watch all the anime in the world and you'd have absolutely nothing in common with like a big film buff. Like they seem to, it's its own world.
It's like oil and water.
Absolutely. And so when they're combined, it's a force that often doesn't work, like the live action Death Note.
Are we talking about Japanese or the American?
the American one, right? So when like anime hits, it hits really hard for me. Like Neon Genesis Evangelion, that is like one of the best bits of fiction I've ever seen in my life. It transcends everything. I like Studio Ghibli. Those films are on in our house all the time. I've got a love for Dark Souls, the video game series, and the inspiration of apparently is Berserk. So there was the manga, the anime, or there was a movie, but I thought I'd go to the purest form. The only manga I've read before that is the Junji Ito, like the horror. It's quite similar in the sense that it's kind of black and white, very light line work heavy, and
yeah, of course.
But other than that, I kind of only been reading like I read like the same things over and over again, like the M.R. James British ghost stories, Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft. Horror fiction it rules my world really, and it's just all the ghost stories specifically.
Do you have any cats or dogs?
I have a dog. I have a pet dog called Ginny.
If you had a cat, I was going to ask you what the cat's name was.
Yes. I know what you're saying. Yeah, The Rats and the Wolves. Shouts out that book. I don't really know many of the modern horror works that have really caught me in the same way. Like I've tried to read some Stephen King, and the style just kind of, I don't know, like
he's like
he
could be like Melville, like which is way too descriptive and long-winded, which is why I never finished Moby Dick. I got to this part where he was describing a painting and it was like 7 pages and I was like, fuck this.
Yeah, reading is like quite a different thing for me in general because I speak very fast. I speak in layman's terms. I don't find myself very eloquent compared to my other two podcast hosts. Mike is like is fiercely intelligent, scarily so. English isn't even his first language, and he's like a master.
It is?
And then Liam speaks when he needs to. He's the master of necessity. He like Kamehamehas people with like careful. Whereas I am like obviously the most verbose, and I just speak and speak. So when I'm reading, I find it to be a real art when I can read things like Lovecraft specifically, where whole sentences seem so short and stories can be 7 pages long, yet the memory and the imagination running wild like is so vivid. There could be a movie about half of these short stories, and it wouldn't need to skimp on detail. So I find, as somebody who speaks a lot and enjoys speaking on a very basic level, I find reading, especially the old masters like Lovecraft and M.R. James and Poe, like it's crazy to me to see the constructive sentences create such powerful sort of visual connections in my head, I guess.
Have you ever read any Jordan?
No.
The Wheel of Time?
No. I'll take all recommendations.
They're amazing, but man, it's like 13 books, 800 to like 1,200 pages. Game of Thrones actually came well after. Robert Jordan actually did a blurb for Martin saying, this guy's the new voice in fantasy. People said, well, Jordan said it, and then he just sold like mad. The Wheel of Time is so much more layered. There's so many more characters, and it has all of these different issues. Like, it's fantasy, but it does it like in a realistic way. If men use magic, eventually they'll go mad, and then the women are so adept with it that they have certain talents and they get put into different groups. Like, there's so much stuff going on, but the bad guys and the creatures and everything else are super kick-ass.
Me and my wife were talking. I said, hey, babe, remember last year? Remember when everyone was excited about Game of Thrones? And she was like, oh, yeah. And that kind of really upset me that she went, oh, yeah, because it's true. People have already forgotten about it. People don't talk about it like it's the GOAT. People don't talk about it like it's even great anymore. People just go, oh, yeah. And the fact that it did so well up until the last like 2 seasons or 3 seasons, if you're like a fanatic book reader, but what they were doing and like the scope and the scale, and I was in there from day one. Like, I'm a book reader first of all, Robert Baratheon for life. I'm upset that because it didn't stick the landing. It's got no legacy.
That was so hardcore, and anytime anybody talks about it, I just sneer. I'm like, because 7 and 8 were garbage. I'm pretty sure that's how he would have ended it, but he would have led up to it.
Yeah, I really do believe that that's kind of how it's ended, which in a way is annoying because that's now spoiled the books. But now I guess that has paved the way for Lord of the Rings to take the throne, I guess.
For now, but once the Wheel of Time comes out, it's going to take everybody.
That's awesome. I'll take that recommendation. But yeah, so as for reading, like, I've kind of let it slip over the years, but when I was younger, I was reading a lot of the newer stuff.
Yeah, for me, like, the only time I really have to read is usually if I'm going to the bathroom or like before bed. The last 2 books I read were both fairly long. Joe Hill or whatever, Stephen King sung, The Fireman, which I really enjoyed. A virus that basically brings the world to a halt and so unrealistic. And then there's another one that I can't remember what it's called, but it's about this town that's isolated. And then there's a witch that lives there, but she's like the ghost of a witch from a long time ago, and she can just appear anywhere, and she'll stay, and you can't do anything about it. So you could be having like family dinner, she just appears right next to the table, and she's just staring at you or your family or whatever, but her eyes are sewn shut. She's fine, she'll just stay there and chill, but if you touch her or mess with her, then bad things really happen. So it's about how would a bunch of teenage boys with like GoPros and stuff like that, what would they do? And it just takes this insane turn. So by the end of the book, you're just like, holy crap, man. And it was actually written about a town in Iceland, and then the guy adapted it for like America because it was so popular there. One guy that I recommend, and he's actually going to be on a guest on the show, he actually wrote me a script. He liked my filmmaking so much, he wrote me a script about a family stuck in their house during a zombie invasion. To get it done, I need 4 actors of like all ages. I need like 10 or 20 zombie extras. So getting it done, getting it produced is the hang up. I've had it for like 7 years, 8 years. So eventually when it does get made, it's going to like blow people's minds. It's a short film. It's like 20 minutes, but still it does stuff that no zombie film ever has. So I'm excited for that. He wrote a couple books about like the end of days, like zombie stuff. One's called Killing Floor, just like the game or whatever. He wrote another one called Suffer the Children, which is about this disease that kills all kids like 13 and under or something. And then the only way that you can help them or bring them back or whatever is by them eating or drinking blood. blood. They go dormant again. But every time they come back, they're a little bit different. What would parents do to keep their kids alive and keep them with them, especially once the blood banks run out of blood? But yeah, his name is Craig DeLuey. But what's interesting too is he also wrote, it's a fiction, but it's about what would happen if a different strain of the bird flu came out. What would happen to the world? And he wrote this like 3 or 4 years ago.
Ask him about the lottery. Yeah.
All right, so get to a few questions. Because if not, we're just going to
Sure,
geek
man.
out all night. Digital or physical copies of a game? What do you prefer?
This is a tough one. So, like, I prefer physical copy of a game, but I'm a very impatient man. In the world that I live in right now, if I get sent a game, it's a digital code and I can play it early. So I got Final Fantasy VII. I was blessed to get Final Fantasy VII a little bit early. If that was a physical copy, I would have had to wait. For a convenient point of view, let's say I was in like a Walmart or whatever. One hand I had the money and the game, on the other hand I had the app on my phone and I could buy it. I'd get the physical version. So I prefer physical, but the sad truth is I'm mostly digital now.
Yeah, it's the same thing with me. I much more prefer physical copy because here, a lot of the games that I want to play are banned. A Way Out, the two-person co-op prison game, couldn't get that here because I guess in the game somewhere there's like a drug deal and the guy's wearing like Gitra. So they're like, he's Arab, so all of the countries over here banned it. Any of the BioWare games, good luck, man. You're not getting it because you can have the romance options. Grand Theft Auto, couldn't get it. What's the game I never finished because it's great in parts, but it's boring in most?
Red Dead Redemption 2.
There you go, Red Dead Redemption 2. So I loved it, but I hated it. I'm going to finish it eventually.
I'm exactly the same. I feel exactly the same.
I got to Cuba and I was like, oh, come on, man.
That is exactly what happened with me. When I got out of there, the next chapter after that, that's where I parked it.
Yeah.
And I haven't gone back.
And I already know the title of the video. It's going to be, I finally finished Red Dead Redemption, and I hate it.
Yeah.
I love the missions. Well, okay, to a point, because you can't be very creative with the missions, and if you try, it's like fail, fail, fail. But the problem is, I've got a 2-minute mission, 3-minute mission. I got to go to some lady's house and get money from her. But I got to ride a horse 10 minutes there, 10 minutes back.
Yeah, lots of people liked it. I have the exact same problems as you.
I want realism, but only to a point. I don't want to pick up a can, then pick up a can, then pick up a can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get that game here because of the prostitution. So a friend on holiday in America brought me back a copy.
So Game Pass, is that also affected by the licensing things?
Digital, you're safe, whatever. But the problem is, our ISPs, Vodafone and Iridium, they're both garbage. They both suck really bad. They have like horrible policies. I got the unlimited package, but it's actually limited to 400 gigabytes. 400 gigs ain't much, man, if you're doing gaming. If you watch an Amazon show, an hour Amazon show in HD is 6 gigs. So you go through that data so fast, man. So that's the problem with digital. Like Warzone, 100 gigabytes.
There's literally a 15 gig patch for that tomorrow. And it's mandatory. They're always mandatory. So it's weighing in at about 189 gigabytes now, Warzone. So that's nearly half of your monthly allowance from one game. Never mind playing it.
And not to mention the data it takes up on your storage.
I think one of the highlights that we're all kind of looking forward to there is that the next generation of consoles that are just on the cusp of release, and that's going to be very exciting for us because, like, even though we're such a small channel in comparison to some of the bigger fish, we are on the radar of the major players, and like Sony sent us Neo 2. So it's kind of weird for me because like it's 50% of me works in the industry and I know what I want to see. I personally prefer supporting long form content, Twitch streams, podcasts, and the like. And so I just think that that's kind of helping us. I guess that's what we're all probably looking forward to the most, is that it's a next generation of consoles with a lot of exciting games on the way. And yeah, maybe we can record some more videos. Mike's work is just getting more busy as time goes on. He works in the TV industry. He's a producer. He's making a documentary for the BBC at the moment, and it's about a famous bridge here in Wales, the Britannia Bridge. Yeah, he's always been a bit of a history buff. He's having to really start a career from the ground up, like, you know yourself, working in the industry, it opens your eyes. Like the stuff that Mike knows compared to me and Liam is probably 20 times as much. And we all watch as much TV as Mike. It's not like Mike likes TV more. He is really like become a student over the past couple of months, and like, you know, he went to the Alps to record a documentary all in Welsh about a jewelry maker, but he's really making a career out of what he's doing, and I'm really proud of that for him. So with that limitation and with me traveling so much, it's kind of meant that we've had to slow down on the the video content. But I guess as the coronavirus continues to sort of plunder the nation, we will have more time to create video content, I guess.
Yeah, Mike and I are pretty similar then. I have my Geeky Amreeki in the channel and stuff, but my other job is videos for companies. It might be some corporate stuff, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I do pretty good at them. But I've done a bunch of documentaries, short, some longer. One of the reasons I like your guys' show too is because there's such a difference between the three of you. Mike is the most pop when it comes to like the games and stuff, and then you're kind of like the hipster or whatever.
Yeah. Liam is like, I would say that Liam is like the jazz musician. He makes me feel like a casual. I played 5-6 games this week, and like Liam is constantly like making me go, what the fuck is Tales of Vesperia, XYZ or whatever. But this is the one thing about Liam. This is Liam's true power. He does all of the stuff that me and Mike do and everything else.
He's like an aficionado of all things gaming.
That's the thing. So like the Patreon podcast that we do is about movies and TV, and he's up to date with everything, and I spend a lot of time asking him for recommendations. Because the thing about Liam is you can ask him so he's already seen it. So it's like Devs or whatever, that Alex Garland thing, he's like ahead of that. Gangs of London, he's already all over that. I'm glad that you said that we're all different. Especially I like the part where you said that Mike was a pop. Yeah.
You kind of balance each other out. And it's very rare that you're all three are like such a good game. Since we're all stuck in the house and on quarantine, best games. But wait, I have categories. The best long game, something that will take you a while, but won't bore you like Red Dead.
By miles, the best game to sink your time into is Divinity Original Sin 2, an incredibly in-depth RPG. There is a lot of menus, and it's not an action-based RPG. It's story, and it's a turn-based combat style, which takes some getting used to, especially if you're a genre virgin. There's a lot to it if you've never played the genre before, but also it's the best example of the genre, and it will ruin every other game in the genre for you if you play it.
I mean, with Divinity 2, I started it, and I've got to go back and like restart. I think I'm going to start doing that and maybe Twitch stream it or something. I'm starting Twitch. I finally got my OBS all set up and all my stupid animations and that, but I'm not going to let me stream this so I can get the views. Like, nah, dude, I'm going to play what I like, and if people dig that game, cool.
That's 100% the best way of garnering an audience, in my I guess expert opinion. That's what I would do.
It's kind of what we're doing now anyway. Like, you do what you think is the best for you guys, and then people will either click with it or they won't. Man, these guys are just sitting around talking. This is boring shit. For me, I'm like, oh man, these guys are talking. This is great. It's not like, check this out, top 5, blah, blah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't just like looked at the top posts of Reddit for the week.
Your daily video from us, subscribe, and you get a video every day.
Even if we don't have any ideas, because we are almost contractually obliged. Exactly. Please help us.
Okay, for like just escapism, just forgetting who you are, where you are.
When I want to escape and do stuff like that, I kind of end up playing mindless roguelike games. When I was traveling a lot, it was a very unusual change for me because I hadn't ever traveled that much, and then all of a sudden I'd been to 4 countries in 4 weeks, and the game that I played that really kind of helped me zone out of like all the airports and all the hotel lobby moments was Slay the Spire, a roguelike card game. It's not a deck builder because you don't collect your cards and keep them like every other card game. Your cards go at the end of every playthrough. So it's a very unusual concept, but there's something about that. There's some purity to it where you're only as good as your last run. That and the Binding of Isaac, kind of the games that I go to if I want to just kick back.
Family.
We like a bit of Mario Party in this house, to be honest. And so I'd recommend that because I think it's quite versatile. It doesn't matter if you're playing with 10-year-olds, 90-year-olds.
What about couples?
It's just called Kingdom, Two Crowns. So it's the sequel to the super minimalist tower defense kingdom builder. It's so beautiful on the TV. Like it looks like some sort of like lava lamp quality to it. Well, me and my daughter played Super Mario Odyssey, where one of us played as the Hat. And it actually works quite well.
A nice Amityville shirt, by the way.
Yes, man. Yeah. It's a favorite of mine.
So you're an artsy-fartsy guy, right? And you know all about these different things. So you can do music and marketing and talking about games. The world's about to end. People took note of what you're doing, and they say, okay, this guy's like a culture specialist. So we're going to need him on our ship. This ship is only going to have a certain amount of people allowed. So you're going to be part of helping the species keep going. And they tell you can only bring 5 things. Now, not hardware because they have all that stuff. So whether it's movies, games, music, books, TV shows, what are the 5 that you would bring?
First of all, hopefully they've got good coffee on board, right? Because if not, I couldn't even bring a pouch of coffee because it would go stale after a month. I think I just bring a classic collection of the old Lovecraft. To be honest, just like he's got quite a few. The Necronomicon is like it doesn't have all the stories, but it's got a lot of his early work that I like. So I guess I'd take that. Music, I would take F sharp A sharp Infinity by Godspeed You Black Emperor, the album by Godspeed from 1999. Bit of trivia for you, was actually sampled without their permission from Danny Boyle in 28 Days Later. The beginning, he's running through the city is that song, East Hastings. So I'd take that. As a game, I would take The Binding of Isaac. I would actually take, out of every game, The Binding of Isaac. It's my most played game. I've been playing it now for 9 years, and I've put nearly 1,000 hours into it over 9 years. So there, I've got a book, an album, a game, a TV show, and a movie. So we've got the Lovecraft Necronomicon. I'm reading it. We've got Binding of Isaac. I'm playing it. We've got Godspeed's F sharp A sharp Infinity. I'm digging it. So now, and also, I'd want a film that reminds me of the real world. I would pick The Wicker Man, the 1973 film The Wicker Man by Robin Hardy. It's by far easily my favorite film ever. I feel like there's something very magical, mystical quality about The Wicker Man, and I love that if I want to empathize with the main character and believe that he's right, I can extract religious value from there. I can extract complete existential value from there. I love that film, and I think it's the best that Earth has to offer. I definitely like Sopranos, but you know what, yeah? I'm going to troll myself. I'll take Game of Thrones. They say love is blind. Like, if I've been on the ship for like 150 years, I might even like the ending. So that's my 5. Is that an okay spread?
Yeah, and you knew it pretty good. But yeah, man, I appreciate you being on. Everybody, make sure you go check out Special Moves. It's one of my favorite YouTube channels. All the guys on there are pretty great. They know what they're talking about. Their opinions are pretty balanced out by one another and by experience in general. Anything you want to like shout out or have people check out?
Stay happy. Make sure that you're constantly enjoying new things, even things that you wouldn't like. Don't tell yourself that you don't like genres. Just look, everyone's at home at the moment, so if you're going to just sit at home and watch some stuff, push yourself, innit? This guy knows what he's talking about. Have a look at some recommendations. That's all I got to say. Thanks very, very much for having me. It's so nice to chat.
Yeah, man, for sure. We talk for so long, but it's always through like direct messaging or YouTube.
Chop as much as you want out. I don't care.